Welcome to Blunt Advice, the short-form show that delivers cannabis industry insight and information in quick hits to help you operate your Cannabiz on a higher level. Here are your blunt hosts, Francesca and Mike.
All right, so here we are. We just entered Croptober, finally, so we're into the big harvest season in the cannabis space. And we thought it was very, very fitting for us to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our heart, but also one that's really on the hearts and minds of many of you out there, which is selling your product. You finally have product ready, it's curing, soon it's going to be going out your door, hopefully. Cash is going to be coming back in your door. So we want to take a deeper dive and give some blunt advice on the two most prominent ways of selling your cannabis. Wholesale, retail. What do you think?
I think this is probably one of the most under-discussed and super important topics that people just it's decisions that they make on the fly. And
Last minute,
they're doing it because they're short on time, energy, money, resources, and that urgency means that they end up making decisions without thinking it through. So I hope we can give them a lot of good things to think about. And yeah, you want to kick it off?
Sure. There's a lot of things that we've kind of thrown out in our brainstorm list of things to consider. So let's start off with order size. So what's the difference in order size between wholesale and retail channels?
Well, I know with retail, at least, order sizes tend to be small. Especially at first. First you have to go through all the pain usually of sampling somebody and getting them to make that decision. And then that first order is rarely for what you actually want them to order. You're talking about a QP, a small order, maybe a pound if you're lucky.
Right.
And then the plan is, of course, that you are consistently growing great flower or you have great product, and so those order sizes increase as it proves itself in the market and the demand increases.
Right, it's the long game.
It is,
so
absolutely.
You're looking for not your first order, you're looking for your fourth and fifth order to where you really start moving some quantity.
Absolutely.
As opposed to wholesale, which a wholesaler or distributor is going to come in and buy a bulk from you all at once. So, and that's nice. Maybe you get to move a lot of weight out of your doors into their trucks, and that's a nice thing, but at what expense?
Right, because the other thing we need to talk about is the sale price. Obviously with retail, you're going to most likely get more money for your product. Smaller orders, higher price. As those orders grow, your price can stay up there. It's nice. You have a lot more money coming in per order, potentially.
Right. Whereas selling wholesale, you're basically selling everything you can at the lowest price that's acceptable to you. So low price comes low margin. Low margin is a tough way to build a sustainable business. So it's one of those things that sales price, margin, cash flow, the three of those variables all work together, and that's really the fuel of your farm to get you from one harvest to the next is that cash flow. So I get the wholesale market in terms of getting rid of a bunch of product to get some cash coming in, even if it's at a low price, a low margin, but you get the immediate cash flow, and that helps to pay your people, it helps to cover your expenses, it helps to put food on the table. So totally respect it and understand it.
But your margins have to support being able to do that versus the time investment it takes for the retail sales to get higher margins, slower cash flow.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really a yin and yang.
It is.
And obviously we
work
in the retail side, so we love the margins and we love the larger revenue generation, but both sides have merit. Let's talk about transportation and moving product from your store, from your farm or your process facility to the store.
Yeah.
And what's the pros and cons there?
Look like? This is such an interesting one for me because with retail, we have seen time and time again that farms are not investing in having somebody dedicated to transporting samples and orders to where they need to go. If you do not have that, you are going to miss out on opportunities, important opportunities, because as we said in the beginning, they start small, they grow big. So you actually never know how much you're missing out on. by not delivering a sample on time, not getting that order in on time, making them wait 3 days. 3 days can be a lifetime in the sales cycle of cannabis when they are getting inundated by suppliers that want to give them everything and anything at the lowest price as fast as possible. So staying competitive in the retail space means you've got to have reliable transportation distribution. And that is a lot of going to one store at a time. So you have to make sure you have somebody strategically thinking about how to distribute on the retail level. If you're going further away, plan for multiple stores and transportation and drops of multiple products at different locations so that you can make the most out of that trip.
I'm glad you brought that about distance, because that's, to me, is a big factor as far as if I'm trying to distribute it on my own. If I'm trying to get to a rural store that's across the state, the cost to deliver a small order out there just won't make sense. And so that's where a wholesaler or a distributor who has a network and they're making multiple stops in those areas, it's a big help for them, and it's a real pro to that side of the model. So that's the transportation distribution end of it is certainly something that needs to be factored in and customized to your particular operation and where you are versus where are the stores that you're trying to service.
And if you're going the wholesale route, I mean, you have to make sure that you understand what that distributor model is for the wholesaler that you're working with.
Right. Yeah. Where are they focused on? In other
when
words?
will they distribute your product?
Yep.
All of those things.
A lot.
Where?
A lot. Let's talk about product risk, because this is a living plant,
Yes,
so
it is.
it doesn't last forever. It has a shelf life, so there's a risk to not selling product that's ready to go to market. So if I'm a retailer, that risk is solely on my shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah,
Versus
that's true.
Wholesale, it's on them.
It is.
They've paid for the product. If they can't move it, if they have to convert it all to pre-rolls, or if they have to trash it, that's their risk.
Yeah, with the retail model, definitely a downside is that your product, when that slow burn, that slow grow, it gets older, and maybe that price isn't there as much because you're selling older product. So it definitely is something to factor in of the volume that you're moving, to make sure that your timeline fits to maximize the health of your plant and product and,
Yep.
the experience, because really that's what's going to keep them coming back. I mean, congratulations if you can sell some really crappy old product, but I bet you're not going to be able to sell it again on that retail side.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into staff, and because this is a big difference. So you're doing it yourself. Obviously, you need to have your own staff, either in-house or third-party people that you're using to handle things like the sales, getting the orders together on the operational side, potentially marketing, drivers, like we talked about with the distribution. Like, those are all people that you have to kind of vet, manage, whatever it's going to be.
Hire, like all of it. Fire,
Yeah.
replace, retain. And that's all for that retail side. Your staff is probably going to need to be bigger, or at least more robust, and have more players in that for different roles than if you go in the wholesale distribution. You think you need less staff?
Well, you don't really you just need somebody that can bulk package, and they handle everything from there. But the fear there is who's representing you or your brand or anything like that, because they're not.
Yeah.
So you're basically just offloading and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's true. So retail, you need more staff because you have deeper roots kind of in the market
Right.
than in
And
the distributor.
the higher
level.
margin should
Support that staff.
and
Exactly.
reinvest.
Yeah.
So the staff is definitely key. Staff kind of, to me, leads a dotted line to brand equity.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you like to talk about branding.
I love talking about branding. Let's talk about it. The equity of your brand is obviously the value of your brand. And the value of your brand grows as it becomes more popular in the market, as more people adopt, your brand as part of their lifestyle or as part of their, shopping preferences. So your brand equity grows exponentially more in the retail side than on the wholesale side. A lot of times when you move stuff wholesale, you miss that opportunity to brand. And the brand can really be what holds that value and what makes you potentially viable as a company in the future, or, ready to grow. You know exactly when you can franchise, when you can get into new states, when you can get into another location, things like that. So brand equity is definitely an incredible value on the retail side of sales.
Right. On the wholesale side, you really have zero brand equity. So
Yeah.
and that's and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a different business model. You're going to grow in bulk, sell in bulk, and build no brand equity in yourself, which makes it hard to me, at least my opinion, makes it hard to have an entity that's an asset down the road. In terms of somebody maybe wanting to acquire or market with you and co-market, like you don't really have those opportunities.
I totally agree with the second half of what you said, but I think
But not the first?
Not the first, because I still think you can invest in brand equity on the wholesale market because you still are talking to certain customers. You have a brand with those customers. It's a smaller customer pool. They're not really as deeply invested in your brand necessarily, but it becomes a reliability factor. It becomes ease of use, and that becomes your brand, those relationships with your distributors or your wholesale
Good
buyers.
point. I like it. That is another one that leads to the final one I wanted to touch on, which is relationship with the store.
Yeah.
And there's some real pros and cons here, especially if you're looking to build a brand and build a sustainable, growing, healthy asset of a business that you have. Having that end relationship with the store, to me, I don't know, there's not much in my mind that's more important than that.
I think you've always said whoever owns the relationship owns the business.
Yep.
That is gold.
Glad you remembered that. That's encouraging.
I think it's pretty essential. Yeah, you need to have those strong relationships with stores, which can be a lot of work because you have a lot of turnover and you've got a lot of people that are busy and pulling on their time. But if you can establish a relationship with a store, that's huge in terms of staying in that store, getting in that store, owning the consumers and making sure that they become brand loyalists to that. I mean, it's just, and it helps the store. There's a lot of opportunity there in that relationship piece on the retail side. What about on the wholesale side?
You really don't have a relationship because they don't know you're the one that's providing that bulk product. So it's nothing you would need to worry about because who has the relationship is the wholesaler. They're the ones that have the relationship, not you. So to me, that one is a no-brainer. If I'm selling it, I want to have as much power, control over that relationship as I can.
And and on the retail side, you actually get to decide if something goes into a store or not and is a good fit with what you're trying to do, with what your objectives are in the business. Because there are people that, let's even take the CBD side. There are people that'll say, I'm not buying any CBD that's sold in the gas station. Well, that's just a blanket statement they're making. And suddenly, if your product is in a gas station or something along those lines, you might have lost a customer base that you were trying to look high-end or be high-end or be high quality and blew it.
Very true. So is this dichotomy, this wholesale retail dichotomy, is this an either or?
No, I think the wholesale retail, let me rephrase that. It can be. If you want to choose all retail or all wholesale, you can. I personally think that the strength is in understanding the opportunities, the pros and the cons in each, and then deciding what percentage of my business should be wholesale, what percentage should be retail, because that's going to give you the biggest safety net, really. They're two different markets.
I think it helps to minimize the inherent risks of both sides of the equation, both approaches, if you have a blend.
Yes.
So, it helps with, you can still maintain healthy margins if you're selling both. You get more immediate cash flow on one versus the other. You can reduce some risk, maybe reduce some manpower here and there. But ultimately, you can still have that strong relationship and have a brand if you're doing both activities through both channels.
Like you get to take advantage of the pros in both sides. Yeah.
And I think most people seem to be doing that, although I know there's a lot of people that just dump everything to wholesale because they don't want to deal with marketing or sales. They just want to grow, and no problem with that. I respect that. And
just make sure you're not chasing a transaction for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
that's
true.
not good.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got this one covered.
Yeah.
There's more than I thought.
Wholesale and retail. So let's roll this all up and pass it on so that we can give you some quick hits of our blunt advice.
Number one, make sure you understand the pros and cons, the risk and reward of both approaches to selling your product.
Yes. And make sure, this is number two, that when you are considering what is the best fit for you, look at all the aspects of the fit. Your staff, your skills, your business, your interests. Where is it that best fits for you is a very personal question to understand.
Number three, diversification means protection. So make sure you don't undervalue all the different benefits that come with diversifying your approach.
Right. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. So make sure you send us some blunt feedback by emailing us at bluntadvice@infusedmedia.io.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Francesca.
And in the time it took you to get feedback on your last sample drop, you just got some blunt advice.